In this video, we're going over what you should do for a 100,000 mile service on this third generation GMC 3500 Sierra. Now these services you can do at 100,000 miles, 200,000, 300, and so on. The first thing we're going to talk about is the air filter. Now it's in this air box right here, and it's recommended you replace this every 50,000 miles, but it'd be a good idea to check it in between. Now we're going to talk about fluids under the hood, starting with the coolant. Now the coolant's recommended at 150,000 miles, but it's also recommended every 5 years. Chances are if you're at 100,000 miles, you're somewhere around that 5-year mark, it's a good idea to change it. Moving on to transmission fluid. Now the dipstick is located right here. What you want to do is do a transmission service. Now you can drop the transmission pan and replace the filter. And when you do that and you put new fluid in, that's only half the fluid in the transmission. You want to do that either a couple times or get a transmission flush done. And depending on the last time you changed your oil, it's a good idea to change the oil regularly. You should do that every 5,000 miles based on whether you have synthetic or conventional oil. Now power steering fluid, way down here. You're going to want to check the level. Take a look at the color of the power steering fluid. If it looks like it's dirty or pretty dark, then it'd be a good idea to extract as much of that power steering fluid out and put some fresh fluid in there. Now the brake fluid, you definitely want to check the level of the brake fluid and check the color of the brake fluid, see how dirty it is. If it's fairly dirty, it's a good idea to extract as much of that fluid out, put fresh fluid in, and then bleed the brakes. And make sure you top off your washer fluid. And that's it for fluids under the hood. Next, we're going to move on to spark plugs. Now it's recommended to just inspect the wires, but if the wires are 5 years old, or if you've got close to 100,000 miles on it, chances are the wires are going to break when you go to take them off. So I would recommend when you're replacing the plugs, also replace the wires. Also check the belts. If they're starting to get dry and starting to crack, it's a good time to replace them. You can check this one from up top. The other one, it's a little bit easier to see from underneath. Now that's it for under the hood. Now this vehicle is only a 2-wheel drive, so there's no front differential and there's no transfer case right here. But there is a rear differential, and at this time we'd want to replace this fluid. And if you had the transfer case or the front differential, you want to replace that as well. You want to do that every 50,000 miles. Now you want to lubricate the suspension, use a grease gun, and lubricate the ball joints. There should be a grease fitting on top of here and on top of the upper ball joint. Sometimes on the outer tie rod end, there's a grease fitting. There's one on the inner tie rod end. The pitman arm, right up here. There's one up there. And on the idler arm, there's one right here on this joint. And then also at the higher part of the idler arm, way up there. Now while you're under the vehicle, you want to check for any leaks. See if there's anything leaking from the transmission or the oil pan or the engine in general. Anything that needs to be addressed. If you had the differential, check that. Look at the transmission cooler lines. As you can see, these are a little bit wet, so those might be something we need to address in the near future. And also the exhaust. Go down the whole exhaust, take a look at it. Everything looks good here. It looks like this muffler might be on its last leg. There is some leaking right here, so that would need to be replaced. And take a look at the shocks, see if there's any fluid coming out of the shocks. These look good, so we're all set. And then same with the front shocks. And next you want to rotate your tires. Now rotating your tires you should do about every oil change or around 5,000 miles. Now depending on the tread type, if you do not have directional tires, what you want to do is take the 2 rear tires, bring those to the front, and then take the 2 front tires and cross them to the rear. Now while you have the tires off, it's a good idea to check the thickness of the brake pads. Make sure there's no fluid leaking out of any of the brake system. And then also check the condition of the brake hoses. If you see any dry rot on any of these hoses, it's time to replace them. And also check the fuel lines. You want to see and make sure there's no rot like this or potential where you're gonna have a leak. Make sure there's no fuel leaks. At this time, this would be a good idea to replace both the fuel line and the vapor line. Now, it's recommended that you check the evap system at 100,000 miles. Now, we looked at those lines and they looked pretty rusted and rotted, so it'd be a good idea to replace those. But it's hard to see a leak. If the check engine light is not on and you don't have an evap code, chances are the evap system's working properly. But you always want to check the gas cap, see if the ratchet seems loose on the cap, and take a look at the seal. If there's any dry rot on that seal, it's time to replace the cap. It's working good. So that's our 100,000 mile service for this GMC. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to our channel, ring that bell, turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our videos.